Well, thank you, Frank, and I'd like to thank you for your support this project and for the support of the center and the center's staff. I remember a few months ago, I told you this was going to be an occasional paper, and it was about 80 pages long. You said 80 pages long, but it occurred to me it was necessary to have an in-depth study that looks at the scope of the threat from North Korea, and that seemed to be apparent several months ago, and the situation has changed so dramatically since that time. The title of the book is The Coming North Korea Nuclear Nightmare, What Trump Must Do to Reverse Obama's Strategic Patience. Let me explain this title. I call this a nuclear nightmare because of the purpose of North Korea's nuclear and missile arsenal. This arsenal is not a deterrent. According to the U.S. intelligence community, North Korea may have 60 nuclear warheads. It also has quite a number of missiles which have developed dramatically during the Obama administration. This is not a force just to defend North Korea against an attack by the United States. This is an offensive force that North Korea one day will use to forcibly reunite the Korean Peninsula under its terms and to drive the United States out of the region. So we have to be looking at the grim decision that one way or another force will be needed to deal with the North Korean threat. This is not a threat that can be just kicked down the road. Now, the second part of the title, What Trump Must Do to Reverse Obama's Strategic Patience. This is to reflect that although many U.S. administrations handled the North Korea situation badly, and frankly were taken advantage of by North Korea in negotiations, it doesn't compare to what happened by the last administration. Strategic patience was an Obama administration policy to kick the North Korea crisis down the road and do nothing about it for the next president. In fairness, it's worth pointing out that past presidents have handled the North Korea situation badly. The Clinton administration negotiated something called the Agreed Framework, which sort of froze North Korea's nuclear program, but actually didn't do some certain things. We knew North Korea had 1 or 2 nuclear warheads in 1994. It wasn't required to give up or declare those warheads. And as Colin Powell said, North Korea started cheating on this agreement while the ink was still drying. Then late in the Bush administration, Condoleezza Rice and Ambassador Christopher Hill were desperate to get a nuclear agreement with North Korea. And one of the things they had to do was to provide an accounting of their nuclear program. The accounting was a fraud. We knew it was a fraud, and they were called accountable. They were called account for it being a fraud. But North Korea was rewarded anyway by being taken off the state-sponsored terror list by the George W. Bush administration and had significant sanctions lifted. President Trump has rightly said past administrations handled this administration very badly and that the Obama administration left him a mess. But what the Obama administration did is so much worse because at least the prior administrations tried to do something about it. They didn't act appropriately. They were taken advantage of. But the Obama administration thought that the North Korea crisis was not that severe, that it would not spin out of control. Journalist Michael Hirsch said in January 2016 that Hillary Clinton did not want negotiations with North Korea because she didn't want too many negotiations ongoing at the same time. The priority of the Obama administration was to get a nuclear deal with Iran. And they were interested in a nuclear deal with North Korea, but I think they determined it was too much trouble. North Korea was simply too hostile, and it would be too difficult to get such an agreement through the Senate. But certainly they made a number of attempts to do so. In February of 2012, they struck something called the Leap Day Agreement to give North Korea a significant amount of food aid in exchange for a freeze on its missile program. About a week after that was announced, North Korea cheated on the agreement by testing a long-range missile, and it collapsed. In late 2015, the Obama administration tried to negotiate a nuclear deal with North Korea, similar to the one they had struck with Iran in July of 2015, and negotiations began between U.S. and North Korean officials. Those negotiations continued until early January 2016, when North Korea conducted its 4th nuclear test. That was the end of efforts by the Obama administration to strike a deal with North Korea. It's interesting that Barack Obama actually told President Trump this would be the biggest threat he would face as president. But, you know, after the election, even though there was a nuclear test in September of 2016, the Obama administration really didn't do anything to counter this threat. And after the election, they were more interested in undermining President Trump's presidency, passing rumors and unsubstantial allegations of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. And what did John Kerry do after the 2016 election? Did he talk to the Trump campaign about North Korea? He actually took a trip to Antarctica. That was Kerry's priority. He didn't see North Korea as a priority. And this is the way he dealt with North Korea through the administration. What we saw during the Obama years, while strategic patience was ongoing, was a huge surge in its missile and nuclear programs. Now, during the Obama administration, we had 4 nuclear tests of increasing yields. There was a significant surge in tests of missiles. There were 76 missile tests under Kim Jong-un between 2011 and 2016. During his father, there were just 27 between. There were 20 missile tests last year during the Trump administration, but they were missiles that were developed during the Obama years. And as these missiles kept being developed, and there also were static missile tests of advanced missile engines on the ground, very little was done by the Obama administration because they didn't see North Korea as a threat, even though the evidence was growing. The detonations of their underground nuclear missiles was growing every time they tested one. North Korea said some of these missiles, some of these nuclear warheads were hydrogen bombs. Now, we sort of laughed at that during the Obama years. Then, in September 2017, North Korea tested a nuclear device that was 10 times larger than its last largest device in the past, about 250 kilotons, that many experts believe was a hydrogen bomb. Now, I discuss in the book why there's a lot of uncertainty about North Korea's nuclear arsenal. Do they have miniaturized nuclear weapons? Was this a hydrogen bomb? It's hard to know because North Korea is such a difficult intelligence target. Also, there are indications that when North Korea tests an underground nuclear device, it takes steps to contain any radioactive gases that are emitted by the test. That makes it very hard, if not impossible, for international observers to gain data to find out what kind of tests that they tested. This is what Donald Rumsfeld might call a known unknown. We know they have a nuclear arsenal, but we don't know we don't know the key details of it. We don't know how large these weapons are. We don't know whether they've been miniaturized. We don't know exactly how many they have. Now, the CIA believes that North Korea will have the capability of firing missiles armed with nuclear warheads that could strike the United States within months. This is what CIA Director Pompeo said in January of this year. But you know, this is a guess because North Korea is such a difficult target. It's possible their program is that advanced. It may not be that advanced, or it could be more advanced. Now, I have maps in this book to show the ranges of North Korea's missiles. Now, we have ICBMs that were first tested in 2017. We also have solid-fueled intermediate and medium-range missiles that North Korea has developed. And these are so dangerous because most of North Korea's missiles are liquid-fueled. Now, liquid-fueled missiles are a problem because they take time to fuel and to move. They can't be moved while they're fueled because the fuel is so volatile. And we can spot these missiles being fueled on the ground. But a solid-fueled missile can be stored secretly and launched very quickly with a very small support team. North Korea has developed and tested medium-range solid-fueled missiles that probably could hit Guam, and it is believed to be developing solid-fueled ICBMs. A solid-fueled ICBM would be a real problem for the United States because it would be something that we simply would not have advance warning from satellites to take out this missile before it was fired at our country. North Korea has tested medium-range missiles by firing them over Japan on 2 occasions in 2017. We simply saw a series of steps of a program that really has become a major offensive threat to the United States. So this threat spun out of control during the Obama years because the North Koreans didn't see any possibility that the Obama administration would do anything to constrain them. What happened during the Trump years, and why is it that we have the prospect of a summit between President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un? President Trump threw out the rule book on dealing with North Korea. He put in place an aggressive policy to counter the North Korean threat. And this simply wasn't warnings to North Korea. This wasn't simply pressure on other nations to honor sanctions. This wasn't simply getting sanctions enforced to a greater degree than they have been in the past. This was putting the credible use of military force on the table. And I think the North Koreans got the message. Remember, this is a president who went to the UN General Assembly in September of 2017 and said he would totally destroy North Korea if it continued to threaten the United States and its allies. He said on January 2nd, 2018, after Kim Jong-un bragged in a New Year's Day message that he had a nuclear button, President Trump said he has his own nuclear button. It's larger and he knows how to use it. The next day, North Korea turned back on a military hotline with South Korea that had been shut down during the Obama years. Shortly thereafter, North Korea agreed to bilateral talks with South Korea and to participate in the Olympics. Another reason for that, I believe, were press reports that the Trump administration was planning a bloody nose strike against North Korea. This would be the limited use of military force, maybe to take out missile sites, maybe to take out nuclear facilities. Now, there was a lot of blowback over this story, and the Trump administration claimed that they never really had such a policy, which frankly I don't believe. But you know, the North Koreans took this seriously, and a major South Korean newspaper said that the idea of a bloody nose strategy had a significant effect on the thinking of North Korean leaders and may have led them to decide to engage in bilateral talks with South Korea. There's another aspect that's a little bit controversial that I talk about in the book, and that is the role of China. China is an adversary that is obviously trying to push the United States out of the East Asia area and to expand its influence worldwide. However, I think there are solid indications that although China through time has used North Korea as a proxy to counter American influence in the Asia-Pacific region, North Korea's nuclear missile program may be pushing China too far. And I have several reasons for believing that. First of all, there are reports that China was very alarmed at the September 2017 nuclear test, which caused a variety of earthquakes, including part of the earthquake so severe that the mountain under which the nuclear test was detonated actually sunk. There are signs that China was very worried that radiation was seeping into their country. But even more significant, and this is something that was sort of unheard of, there were two Chinese academics who gave speeches and wrote articles in 2017. One was permitted to say that China should now consider North Korea a latent enemy, and that the two nations no longer can have a cooperative relationship. The other academics said that China should start talking to the United States and South Korea about contingency plans on how to replace the North Korean regime if it loses in a nuclear conflict. One of these academics also said that China has to recognize that if a North Korean nuclear weapon test goes badly, it will be South Korea and China that suffer. Those are the nations which will be irradiated by radiation leaking out of a failed underground nuclear test. I don't think the Chinese are with us on most international issues, but I do believe that there's some thinking of adjusting their policies based on North Korea's behavior, at least over the last couple of years. And I might add that these academics were not censored for doing this. Their articles and speeches are still available on Chinese government websites. One of these speeches was actually published by the New York Times last fall. So I wonder if this created an opportunity that Donald Trump took advantage of. And also, Chinese leaders do not like being criticized by the President of the United States. One of the President's most notorious tweets concerning North Korea and China was one he sent when he noted that Chinese trade with North Korea increased by 37% in the first quarter of 2017. And this is among many things the President has done to try to make it clear that China has been cheating consistently on sanctions against North Korea. Now, this cheating in early 2017 was cheating on Obama policies. The Trump administration was still getting stood up. This included January of 2017. The president wasn't in office, obviously, until January 20, 2017. I think there are clear indications that China has increased its compliance with these sanctions. There's indications of cheating. There's a lot of cheating by Russia. But I think when the president gives China credit for increasing its compliance, I think that there is reason to do so. But I think we have to keep the pressure up to make that even better than it is right now.